Okay, let's be honest, endo is complicated. Everyone experiences it differently, and what helps one person might not produce the same results in another. This is why it's important to try and decode your body, as I like to say, so you can construct a plan that works for your unique body. In today's video, I'm breaking down a few symptoms, which when combined together can point towards certain concerns, nutrient gaps, or needs that can help you move the needle on your endo symptom improvement journey. If you haven't already, please give this video a like, share it with a friend, and hit that subscribe button. So the first constellation of symptoms that I want to talk about point towards SIBO. 3 symptoms I routinely see correspond with SIBO include painful and persistent bloating, chronic constipation, chronic diarrhea, or a mix of the two, and a triggering event that set off these symptoms to begin with. This might include abdominal injury, a course of antibiotics, a season of stress, surgery, or food poisoning. Other symptoms of SIBO include FODMAP sensitivities, urgency, fatigue, nutrient deficiencies, nausea, and stool changes like greasy, bulky, or floating stools. SIBO stands for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and it's when bacteria translocate from the large bowel where they should be into the small intestine where they shouldn't be. SIBO is a red flag for people with endometriosis, and unfortunately it's quite a bit more common in people with endo than in people who do not have endometriosis. Let's talk a little bit about how endo can contribute to the development of small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and how in turn small intestinal bacterial overgrowth can make endometriosis worse. So endo can lead to pelvic adhesions. When these adhesions find themselves on or around the bowels, uterus, or small intestine, they can physically restrict or alter the movement of food and waste through the intestines. This causes slower gut motility. Because slower movement of food, debris, and waste gives the bacteria located in the small bowel more time to ferment that food, they generate more gas, causing the uncomfortable, painful bloating you might experience with SIBO. This persistent bloat can contribute to sensitivity of the internal organs, also exacerbating endometriosis-related pelvic pain. If food, waste, and hormones can't exit the body in a timely fashion, they can circle back into the body, contributing to estrogen excess symptoms and pain. Not only does this present in unpleasant symptoms like breast tenderness, spotting, weight gain, mood and sleep shifts, and heavy clotted bleeding, but it also results in more estrogen in circulation than you should otherwise have. Because endo is estrogen dependent and can leave you feeling more inflamed, in pain, and uncomfortable. Bacterial overgrowth like SIBO also results in the production of more lipopolysaccharides, or LPS for short. LPS is a type of toxin that triggers systemic inflammation and is actually linked to endometriosis spread and more uncomfortable, painful symptoms of endometriosis. Because SIBO is located along the small intestine where it shouldn't be, this also happens to be a major site of nutrient absorption. So it also has the potential to exacerbate important nutrient deficiencies, like deficiencies in zinc, B12, iron, and fat-soluble vitamins like vitamin A, D, and E. If you're someone who is always iron deficient, you supplement and it doesn't help, you should consider testing for SIBO. These minerals are essential for supporting thyroid function, estrogen elimination, energy, the nervous system, egg quality, immune regulation, and more. So the impact of deficiency is profound, or can be profound, on your quality of life with endometriosis. By addressing SIBO, assuming it is something that you're living with, you can reduce bloating or even eliminate bloating and bowel pain, improve energy and nutrient status, better balance hormones, improve your immune response, reduce systemic inflammation and pain, and reduce visceral hypersensitivity. Now, these labs are not diagnostic for SIBO, but I commonly see high neutrophils over 60% and low lymphocytes under 24% correspond with a positive SIBO test result. As I alluded to previously, chronic iron deficiency or chronic fat-soluble vitamin deficiencies, like in the case of vitamin D, can also be a worthwhile indicator to explore for suspected SIBO, especially if some of the other symptoms line up. The best tool we have at the moment for diagnosing SIBO is a SIBO breath test. And although it absolutely can produce false positives, we can mitigate this risk by doing the proper test prep. Okay, the next constellation of symptoms I'd like to discuss is high estrogen, low progesterone. So some signs of progesterone deficiency include spotting 3 or more days before the start of your expected period, difficulty falling and or staying asleep, especially before your expected period in the luteal phase, heightened anxiety, again, especially in the luteal phase before your expected period, breast tenderness, mood changes, low libido, and cyclical headaches or migraines. Progesterone is your calming anti-anxiety hormone, so any symptom that might suggest heightened anxiety or instability in mood or sleep can indicate progesterone deficiency. Some signs of estrogen dominance include heavy clotty periods, cyclical migraines, mid-cycle spotting, breast tenderness or swelling, puffiness or water retention or weight gain around the hips or thighs, mood shifts, cyclical pain in the high estrogen phases of your cycle, like around ovulation and the luteal phase, which is between ovulation and the start of your period, histamine excess symptoms like itchy skin, runny nose, congestion, low-grade fever, body aches, rashes, or hives, especially if it corresponds with those high estrogen phases of your cycle, like ovulation or the luteal phase. If you are experiencing constipation or slow transit time, these are also things that put you at risk for estrogen dominance, as estrogen must exit the body through your stools. If you have elevated liver enzymes above 30, or you take medications or high dose pain relief that can burden the liver, this will also put you at an increased risk for higher than optimal estrogen levels. The next symptom pattern or constellation of symptoms that I want to discuss is histamine excess. So histamine intolerance or poor histamine degradation is surprisingly common with endometriosis. High estrogen stimulates mast cells, which is a type of immune cell, and they stimulate these mast cells to release histamine. High estrogen also blocks DAO, which is the enzyme your body uses to break down histamine. We're prone to more pro-inflammatory histamine-generating bacteria in the gut, as well as people with endometriosis. Histamine in turn stimulates more estrogen production, resulting in this endless, uncomfortable cycle. Clues that you might be struggling with histamine excess or histamine breakdown issues include flushing or heat intolerance, itchy skin, hives, or rashes that come and go, runny nose or sinus congestion without being sick, worsening symptoms with wine, cheese, fermented food intake, or leftovers, headaches after eating, irregular periods or worsening PMS, body aches, or low-grade fever. If your histamine excess symptoms worsen with ovulation or in your luteal phase, this is a good sign that your histamine is triggered by estrogen. By supporting healthy estrogen removal, you can likely improve your histamine load. If you experience constipation or the start of your histamine excess symptoms corresponds with a long period of loose stools, a course of antibiotics, or food poisoning, you might consider deep diving your gut for some clues as to where your histamine may be coming from. While not diagnostic for histamine excess, elevated basophils over 1%, elevated eosinophils over 3%, and elevated overall IgE in the blood can be indicators of histamine excess. Nutrient gaps often present with unique symptoms. Some are so unique there's no denying that deficiency is at play in your symptom picture. Because various minerals and vitamins play important roles in how endometriosis behaves in the body, it's one of the easiest ways to get relief from pesky pain, low energy, or digestive symptoms. So I'm going to break down a couple of symptoms to keep your eyes peeled for that might be indicators of specific vitamin or mineral deficiencies. The first one I want to talk about is signs and symptoms of magnesium deficiency. So muscle cramps, especially if you're getting them at rest, muscle twitches, especially on the face or the eyebrow, trouble sleeping, anxiety or low stress resilience or tolerance, and constipation can definitely point towards magnesium deficiency. If you sweat a lot or experience loose stools or vomiting frequently, this will also put you at increased risk for magnesium deficiency. If you're in a season of stress, this will also put higher demands on your body and can lead to magnesium deficiency. Fatigue, odd cravings for things like soil or ice, restless legs, hair loss, shortness of breath, or pale skin with dark under eye circles are very common symptoms of iron deficiency. Easily bruising and extreme fatigue after bleeding especially are common with iron deficiency as well. If your wounds are slow to heal, you have skin breakouts, rashes, or dry flaky skin, frequent illness, white spots or lines on your nails, taste or smell changes, and or a normal free T4 thyroid hormone but low free T3 thyroid hormone, you could be zinc deficient. This is an important mineral to replenish, as deficiency is a risk factor for endometrioma growth, and it is a key mineral in thyroid hormone conversion. While lab work can help you identify deficiencies, often making a conscious effort to include more food sources of these important minerals or supplementing produces a positive change in symptoms. Iron is an important mineral to test for in the blood, as many patterns can present pointing towards different underlying causes of deficiency. So for example, patterns similar to iron overload, which might present with high serum iron, high ferritin, low total iron binding capacity, and high transferrin saturation, may in fact be a sign of pernicious anemia, which is a B12 deficiency driven anemia, or B6 or folate deficiency. Pernicious anemia can also present with a normal serum iron and a low or normal total iron binding capacity and a normal or high percentage saturation. A low serum iron but high ferritin may actually be a sign of anemia of chronic disease or inflammation. So always request a full panel so you can understand the full picture. The way that you intervene on each of these patterns is always going to look a little different. The answer is not always supplementing with more iron. Okay, the last pattern I want to discuss in today's video is cervical inflammation. In order to understand the potential for cervical inflammation, you need to understand how to measure your cervical mucus patterns. There are a few criteria for identifying cervical inflammation. One is a sticky, so 1/4 inch stretch, or tacky, which will stretch 1/2 to 3/4 inch stretch, or a gummy discharge, which doesn't stretch, but it will rebound between your fingers if you try and squish it. So these types of cervical mucus patterns that present in the early pre-peak phase of the cycle, so this is roughly 6 days before ovulation, can be an indication of cervical inflammation. The second criteria is any sticky, tacky, or stretchy or gummy discharge seen anytime from the 4th day after ovulation. Despite cervical endo being rare comparatively to endometriosis in other locations, this pattern is very specific, which saves you time on pursuing solutions. A continuous wet without lubrication pattern could also indicate a low-grade infection of the cervix. In 18 patients with this pattern, 15 had positive cultures, and when treated, this continuous wet pattern went away. So it's not super strong research, but it can be an indication. And if you're already suspicious that you may have cervical inflammation or an infection, and this pattern is lining up, this could just make you feel a little bit more confident about pursuing further investigation. In addition to these cervical mucus patterns, abnormal bleeding, either mid-cycle or at random times in the luteal phase or post-exercise or intercourse, can also occur as a result of inflammation. Inflammation makes the uterine lining unstable, which can present as abnormal and inconsistent bleeding patterns. So let me know if you relate to any of the patterns I discussed in today's video, if at all, so that I can create future videos on solutions for you. If you're looking for a resource for decoding digestive symptoms specifically, head to the link in the show notes below to get access to my free gut health guide and endo gut health masterclass. I break down the 8 gut health types in this masterclass to help you find relief from bloat, food sensitivities, constipation, and more. Thanks so much for watching today's video. If you found it helpful, please don't forget to give it a like, share it with a friend, and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And I will see you in the next video.